You heard this next young woman speak only to introduce somebody else on Sunday, and now you have the pleasure of hearing her speak on her own behalf. Karmen Smith is a licensed clinical social worker. She works with Clark County Family Services as a child and family intervention specialist. She's an actress, counselor, and pastor by training. Karmen brings a unique teaching style to her seminars. She began her career by attending the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Pasadena, California, but never strayed from her interest in psychology and human behavior. Karmen received her bachelor's degree in mental health research with an emphasis on learning and processing information and a minor in biology from California State University, Dominguez Hills, where she graduated cum laude. Karmen, after considering a career in psychiatry, chose to follow in her mother's footsteps and become a social worker. Karmen graduated with a master's program in social work from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. While studying, Karmen discovered a close link between spirituality, belief, faith, and behavioral change. Karmen received her Doctor of Divinity from the University of Metaphysics and became one of the associate pastors of University Church Institute and co-founder of Divine Light Ministries in Henderson, Nevada. Dr. Smith continues to combine spirituality and psychology to effect change. She currently works for Clark County Family Preservation Services as an in-home counselor and occasionally teaches at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. She continues to speak at conferences around the country, spreading the word that healing begins inside and then proceeds outwardly. Today she is speaking on forgiveness, the future, and you. You're going to enjoy Dr. Karmen Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Karmen Smith. I'm really pleased to be here today. I'm talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I work with abused and neglected children and their families, and I try to reunite them before going to foster care. And so what do you need in order to reunite a family that's hurting, that's damaged, that's broken? You need forgiveness. And I do not believe that a therapist can go into a home or a pastor can go into a church and talk about forgiveness unless you've been through that path, down that path, and through that fire yourself. And because you have to show another person how to get there. I grew up with a lot of unforgiveness, and I want to talk a little bit about that. You'll see a pattern that I've given a lot of you. I kind of ran out of handouts, but if you need one, raise your hand, and Dan will give you one. And if you can share, there's one underneath your there. Okay. What you'll notice in the first handout, it says pattern of unforgiveness. And it starts out at the top with programming and history. The way you learn how to forgive is if you grow up in a household or around people that forgive other people. And if you see it in your life, it's easier for you to participate in it when you have to. I grew up in a home where my mom was a forgiving person, but I constantly thought that she didn't have all the facts. I thought that maybe she was missing something about that other person that I didn't like, and so my job was to inform her of why you should hate this person just like I do. That person happened to be my dad. He was an alcoholic and at times abusive, so I grew up at 4 years old trying to figure out how to call the operator, which was easy back then. You just push 0 or dialed 0. So I grew up in a domestic violence household, and I did not like that guy that people called my dad. So when I was a teenager, I called him a sperm donor. So you can tell I didn't have forgiveness in my heart growing up, and I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't understand people that did it, and it just didn't make sense to me. And when people would tell me, oh, you need to forgive your dad, it just grinded on my craw. So when I was older, I always told people, oh, I forgive him. And I thought I had because I was saying the words. And because I moved thousands of miles away from him and didn't have to deal with him, it was easy to say, I forgive him. But actually what was happening, and if you look at this diagram, you can see that my thoughts were sick. If your thoughts are sick, your emotions follow. So I was filled with anger. It wasn't directed at my dad, but guess what? He was an authority figure, and guess how I treated authority figures? With anger, with spite, like they didn't know enough. I was haughty, and so my emotions followed my sick thinking, and guess what my behaviors did? You can see where the behaviors are. You argue more, you might demean. What I had was biting sarcasm, and that biting sarcasm, folks, is anger in disguise. I was impatient, I was ego-driven, all of those things I was, and I did not know that I could tie it all the way back to unforgiveness. It's interesting. God has a sense of humor because I think I had my anger turned out toward all men, and because God has a sense of humor, guess what? I had a son. And when I was impatient with him, my thought process never went back to maybe it has to do with my unforgiveness when I was younger and how it's affecting me today. And people are funny. They'll think, well, that was many years ago. That has no effect on me now. I'm not even dealing with that. What does that have to do with me now? Well, I'm here to tell you that it has everything to do with you now. And so if you're asleep to whatever has happened in your past that you're holding on that unforgiveness to, it's time to wake up today because it's okay to work on yourself. You'll notice at the bottom of the page of that diagram it says unforgiveness changes your true identity. Unforgiveness changes your true identity. I had a spiritual experience in 1999. I was on the freeway. I'm going to make this brief. I basically was driving to work like I had done many times before at the courthouse. And here I was on the freeway and having a movie go on in my head. This movie was a vision of Jesus. And he basically took me on a journey, and I did not wake up until I was in the parking lot of the courthouse and crying, 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 cleansing tears. For the next week or maybe even a month, he was downloading information, and this is the information that I totally remember. I remember in the parking lot of a Walmart, a Big Lots, wherever I was at this time that he was downloading this information. And what I remember him saying is, I love that man. And I knew exactly who he was talking about. He was talking about my dad, my sperm donor. He said, I love that man and I want you to see him the way I see him. And I love the way he is. I love what he does. I love every inch of him. I love the top of his head and the bottom of his feet. And I saw for the first time how God saw my dad. And I wept. And the reason I wept is because I started to love him too. And you talk about the weight of the world dropping, dripping off of me as my tears fell down my face. I've never experienced anything quite as powerful, and it impacted me the way I treated my boss the next day. I treated him with love. And I had never treated my boss that way. I treated him like a moron. But I saw him differently after I forgave the root of my anger. It was incredible. And then I said to myself, if I could just teach this to people that I'm dealing with that are holding on to so much anger, what would that look like? And what I'd like to share with you today is that not only did my thought process change, but God was able to use me more. And in ways I could never imagine once I got rid of that junk. I thought I was living before. I thought I was spiritual. I thought I was being a social worker. I thought that I was being an okay mom, an okay sister. But what I came to recognize is once he was able to show me that love that he sees and that he experiences, that I was in the zone. And some of you know what the zone is. The zone is when you're so connected to God and to other people that messages start coming to you and you give them out. You're like a vessel that you are getting filled and then it's going right back out of you. You're getting filled again and it's going right back out of you. And it was that vessel that is talked about. I want to share 2 stories with you. But before I do that, I want you to see the other diagram, which is called Generating Light Through Forgiveness, because this is what I'm talking about. When I was filled with unforgiveness, it was like I was clogged up. I didn't know I was clogged up because I didn't experience anything different. But once I realized that there's another way of being, it was like a light switch, on and off. Generating the light through forgiveness, at the top you'll notice at that star it says, replace it by being born again. What does that mean? I had to reprogram myself as far as how God sees things, because it's not necessarily how I grew up seeing things. So I needed to find out how to reprogram my brain to think differently. When somebody does some behavior that I don't necessarily approve of, that doesn't mean that I hate the person. Now remember, I grew up, if you did something, I hate you. So do you see the difference? The difference is, I'm not fond of your behavior, but I love you. Why? Because you're a part of me. I am you, you are me. There's no separateness. In unforgiveness, you see people as separate than you. That's them over there, instead of that's part of me. And so generating the light, I had to reprogram myself. On the other thing, my thoughts had to be different. I had to see myself as not being able to be harmed. Can you imagine that? Not seeing yourself as being able to be harmed. I'm spirit. How in the heck can you hurt me? Really? It is a perception that has to change. I can't be hurt. I'm fire, I'm wind, I'm water, I'm air, I'm all of that. I'm spirit. Oh, how deep does that go? That is awesome. Nobody can hurt you. My dad couldn't hurt me. He was being him. My job was to love him. Amen. Okay, emotions. I'm connected to everything, and when you're connected to everything, there's a feeling of peace and contentment and calm and awe, and there's that vessel experience. Oh my gosh, now you're in a state of being. You're taking and giving out love, you're gathering, you're giving out, you're giving and receiving love. Now that sounds simple, but there are so many things that can clog that process. When I felt my dad had hurt me, I wouldn't allow people that close to me. And so how can I receive love if you can only be at a distance? How can I give love if I'm afraid you're going to stomp on it? And so forgiveness says I'm free to be who I'm supposed to be, who I am already. I can't be hurt. My job is a vessel. That is what I do. Amen. 2 stories. After that experience in 1999, I experienced life differently. Let me give you 2 examples. Here in Las Vegas, we have an abuse and neglect shelter called Child Haven. It's 24/7. When kids are picked up by the police or by Child Protective Services, they're taken to this facility where they're housed until the court can go through their process. So we have a lot of abuse and neglect children there, from infants to 17-and-a-half-year-olds. And so I was the clinician for Child Haven. And there are staff there that watch the kids. And so I was walking around on campus one day, this is after my experience, and I ran into a coworker. He's Hispanic, he's probably about 35, big guy, didn't hardly know him, but a voice in my head, very clear, said, go to him and tell him that I love him. And there was this feeling of gushy love. And I said, well, he's going to think I'm crazy, but I'll go up and do it. I'll be obedient. And so I went up to him with this gushy love. I said, you know, God told me that he just loves you so much. And he looked at me and thought, oh, okay, Dr. Smith, and he went on about his way. I had no, control over his reaction. The next day, same guy, same thing happened. I go up to him again. God just wants me to tell you that he just loves you so much. And I think now he's starting to tell other coworkers that there's something wrong with Dr. Smith. This is after my experience and everything, and I'm being obedient. 3 more times this happened. At one point, we strike up a conversation, because I did have to get to know this guy and find out, why is God telling me this? Come to find out that his son, who had some cerebral palsy, he was probably about 6, was in the hospital. He had a bad prognosis, and he and his wife had been going to the hospital pretty regularly. And this had started about the time when I was saying, God just really loves you. So one day, I'm sitting in my office, minding my own business, and I get that voice again, and it said, I know it's not your lunch hour, but I need you to go to the hospital. And I said, why am I going to the hospital? And he said, I need you to go in the hospital. I give him my car, and then I'm driving. He said, but go to the bank first. Go to the bank first? Okay, so I'm going to the bank first. What am I doing at the bank? I'm withdrawing $1,000 from my savings account. Now, social workers don't make a lot of money, but I'm obedient, and I withdraw $1,000 from my bank account, and I go to UMC Hospital. And there on the pediatric ward is my coworker that I've been saying all these things to, and his wife and his family are all around. And I think that I'm going there to lay hands on this kid. I think maybe God has a divine plan for me. I go in, and everybody's head is down, and I hand him this envelope with a card and $1,000 in it. And he tells me that his son just passed about 5 minutes ago. He said, how did I know to come to the hospital? And I said, I don't know how I know, but I'm glad that I'm here. And I was stumbling over my words because I was shocked. I leave, I go out of the elevator after giving everybody a hug. And then I get back to my office and I get a phone call. And he said, when I opened that envelope, and my family saw that, they said, Dr. Smith, we were trying to figure out how to bury my son. And we knew that we needed about $850. And you gave us $1,000. And I said, praise God. Thank you, universe. This is what living is. This is what forgiving my dad did. This is what being a vessel is. This is what giving and receiving love is. I'll take more of that. And I will look like the lunatic saying, God just really loves you. Oh, God is so good. I thought I was living before. I thought I was going to work, paying my bills, being a good citizen. This takes you up so much higher. doesn't it? You resonate at a different level. One more story. I was working in detention filled with juvenile kids that have broken the law. Many of the girls there, because we're in Las Vegas, Sin City, many of the girls that are 12 years old to 16, 17 are in there for prostitution, stealing cars, drug use. So I started a group in there. And if you were here 2 years ago, I did a seminar on the Matrix that I used in the detention facility, the Matrix trilogy movie, which works really well with getting kids to see that they're more than what they are. And so at this time, I'm doing a little talk with the girls and everything. It's probably about 50 of them because they joined a unit together. And God said, I want you to talk to the third one in the back row. I want you to tell her that I love her and she's great. He's always giving me these messages. Now this time I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So I left. And all that week, because I go there every Saturday, all that week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you need to do it. Why didn't you do it? I need you to do it. And I said, oh my gosh, I hope she's there Saturday. When I go back, she better be there, because then I'm going to have to track her down. So lo and behold, I go back there Saturday, and she's there. I finish my talk, and I said, you, whatever your name is, I need to see you off in the corner. We go in this little room. And I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, because I used to start everything that way. I don't anymore. I just go for it. But back then, you know, it was new, kind of like Evan Almighty or something. It's like, you're going to think I'm crazy, but last week when I was here, God wanted me to say something, and now that you're here, you know, okay, he wants me to tell you that he just loves you so much. He just adores you. And she started crying. She said, all while I've been in detention, I've been asking God to forgive me for prostituting. And I didn't get an answer. She said, but you, I know it's from God, because I've been asking, do you still love me after all that I've done? And I said, absolutely he does, no matter what you do. It's not what you do, it's who you are. And that's why we forgive others. It's not based on what they do, it's because of who they are. Thank you for letting me talk today. I didn't even get to my video, but I do have a CD. Thank you. I do have a forgiveness CD. Now what this CD does, it's a meditation. It uses ocean sounds and music. You listen to it more than once. It's 45 minutes, and it definitely puts you in a state of looking at that person instead of their behavior. Thank you very much.
Thank you.